I'll ask everybody to stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Chair to select order of business without opposition. Would like to add, it was an oversight on our part, school year opening update to number 3 on the superintendent's report. Is there anybody opposed to doing so? Okay, we will do so then. So with that, we'll roll into the superintendent's report with Brian.
Thank you, Tim. Good evening, everyone. I was asked in the spring to invite Oak Hill representatives of Oak Hill School here. They are here tonight just to briefly present on the wonderful, long-standing relationship between the New Hartford Public Schools and Oak Hill. So Josh is here, Josh Black. He works with our wonderful students here at Oak Hill, and he has his colleague here, Emily. And Josh, thank you for coming. I appreciate that.
Hello, everyone. I'm Josh Black. This is Emily Karen. And I've worked in this school for 12 years now, 12 wonderful years. Emily has been here even longer, but in a special way. Oh, I think tell about how you've been here.
Sure. So the Oak Hill program started here in 1992. I was born in 1993, and my mom was the special education teacher here prior to me. And
Josh,
so,
ask her to use the microphone.
oh, sure.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Is this working? Can you?
Is this, yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
And so prior to becoming teacher here, I was a baby here, and I grew up, and I had the special opportunity of having the Oak Hill students be some of my best friends, and they certainly had a profound impact on my life, so much so that I went and I got my master's degree in special education, and I am committed and have been teaching here for 2 years now.
My background is social work, and I grew up in New Hampshire. When I first started working, I worked with folks who were deinstitutionalized. So these were people who, as children, when they were born with disabilities, the doctor said, oh, you belong up in that building up on the hill where you don't interact with people in the community. And I worked with some folks who were neglected and abused all their lives. And then deinstitutionalization happened, and we were trying to get them into the community, and it was difficult. This is wonderful because we're here, we're in the community, we know everyone. Our kids have friends in this school. They see them out in the community, in the grocery stores. They have friends, and that's just amazing. So Oak Hill's been around since 1894. You may know us as Connecticut Institute for the Blind. But now we give services to all folks with disabilities, and we're obviously the education department. Our department has a structure of interdisciplinary team, which we have OT, PT, speech,
Behavior specialists,
music and art therapy,
nurse. Every classroom has an LPN on site.
and the things that we've been involved here with your students, your children. We've been in, I've been through 2 years of Spanish. Which was wonderful. Students did really well. Gym classes with Deb, recess, and lunch.
Morning meetings. You are
Yep.
you assist with the music for the performing arts plays, the
Yes,
Revolutionary War and Civil War plays.
which I still do every year. Actually, I need to talk to the 6th grade to start setting that up
We love
again.
to be involved.
Love doing that. Lunch recess, many of your students give up their recess to come and play with our kids. And it's been wonderful. Just recently this year, I was in the Home Depot and I ran into a student who I hadn't seen since 6th grade, since she graduated. And she's in college now, and she had so many wonderful memories. She was such a wonderful girl, so much time with our kids. And she went into physical education, she said, because of her time with our kids.
We've had similar students come back that are on the ambulance, Hartford ambulance, or that are bus drivers for some of our students now.
Yeah.
And it gives, and many students have a chance to be leaders in their class, in our classroom. And for our students, it's the best part of their day.
And the magic of it is the people here. We have a principal who says, yes, you can do this, and then recommends things to us. It's like, hey, do you want to do this? And, we have teachers who, when we approach them, we have a third grader, we'd like to come in and say, I have a student who needs your student as a friend. And we see these friendships happen where your student's helping our kids are helping your kids. And, I can feel it right for now. It's very emotional to see what can happen and the possibilities and the magic of the people that we work with here.
I'm getting the chills as well.
Yeah.
Something that I've never experienced anywhere else. I really think that we have something unique and special here in our connection with each other.
And we've been recognized, what did I write down? What was the name of the Connecticut Live?
CT Live.
CT Live came here, Scott Haney came here, did a feature on us. So we've been able to do some really fun things.
Showcase, our connection with each other and, the programs that we've built with each other.
And it's so nice to be in the school, to be part of a community. I mean, just today I was walking down the hallway and a girl just was skipping down the hallway. And there's an energy. And people was like, I didn't skip, but I thought about it. It's a nice place to be, and we're really happy here. Anything else?
I think that's it. Do you guys have any questions for us?
I don't. My kids enjoy when the kids come in class. I've been a room mom for many years, and we always make sure that we have enough for everybody. If your kids want to join, it's a conversation at our table. I know my kids enjoy Oak Hill. That's all. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Great presentation. The kids that you bring in, are they just from New Hartford or from the surrounding area?
I'm glad you asked that.
So we serve students from a variety of school districts across Connecticut, and they are outplaced to our program.
Typically, we get the students whose medical needs and/or behavioral needs are challenging in the school district that they are in. We currently don't have a New Hartford student, but we have.
In the past.
Yeah. We have Torrington, Watertown, Waterbury, Granby, Hartford, and that's all for students now.
How many students do you have right
We
now?
have 9 at the moment. We have one who and this is always our goal, was able to return to her home district in a public school in her home because of the goals that she achieved here.
Mhm.
We're very excited for her.
So Oak Hill provides, a continuum of services based on the child's needs, and our program is really tailored to those students who are have a higher level of independence and are working towards, going back to public schools. We're kind of, more of like the final stage before going back to public school.
And it's all tailored towards individual needs. We do a fair amount of group things, but it's challenging. Unified sports that we do here are one of our group things. My life goal is to bring music to everyone. So I do music groups every day, and working with Allison here, we're starting to put together some bell groups. We've had kids who saw one of our students singing in the hallway 2 years ago say, let's have an Antonini Oak Hill chorus group. And that's what got us onto the Connecticut Live,
Mm.
doing that. And we have a lot of fun.
Where do you see the program going moving forward? Growing, staying the same size, new programs coming in? What do you think?
As far as the students,
Yeah, students and the program itself.
I think realistically, the amount of students that we have, a good amount.
Yeah. We've had as many as 12 before,
Mhm.
and we can manage that, although it's very difficult to have staff. during this pandemic.
Mhm.
I've heard this called the Great Resignation,
Mhm.
and we are experiencing some challenges staffing all across the agency. That's definitely those things that wake us up at night.
Mhm.
And currently with COVID, it is difficult, sometimes combining, our two programs as we once did. And so, my hope as we move forward and, get vaccinated and learn more about COVID-19, and how to treat it and everything involved with that is to kind of start rebuilding, what we had prior and, continuing to integrate and, have Angelini students join our classes and vice versa as much as possible.
Great.
Yeah, many of our kids, it's very challenging to do any kind of social distancing when what you have to do is hand over hand.
Mhm.
And so we're close. It does put us at risk. Those are the things that keep us awake as well.
Mhm.
However, I have noticed since wearing masks, this is the healthiest I've been in 12 years.
Mhm.
Just before it came through, like the November and December before it came in, we were so certain we had it when we heard of it. We were so sick with the colds going through.
Mhm.
And I can't tell you how nice it is to
Not be sick.
not be sick.
How many similar arrangements do you have with school districts across the state? Is it,
We have
Regional
11
or-
classrooms.
I'm sorry, how many?
11
11.
classrooms, but only 3 of us are in schools.
Yes, we have one classroom within the Plainfield School District and another classroom in the Portland School District.
Okay.
And
I think
the,
this
and the
is-
one in Avon shares a building with a Montessori. Yes.
So I'm just thinking for the more populated parts of the state, how do you manage those kids? Is it not in the district, in the local district, or?
For example, Hartford, we have
Right.
2 classrooms in Hartford,
Oh, I gotcha.
but those aren't in public schools.
Okay.
It's kind of special to be within a
Right.
school.
And again, it's that continuum of services, so not everyone, not all of our students are ready to
Right.
be in a public school yet. That's always our goal is to work towards getting students in classrooms with other kids their own age.
Sure.
But a lot of our students are not ready for that, and so some of our other programs are tailored to, help them get to the point where they might be more ready to be here. Also, some of our programs are tailored to ages 15 to 21, and so those
Yes.
are more vocational based,
Gotcha.
out in the community jobs.
So
Right.
students in our classroom graduate at 14, most typically to one of our secondary classrooms, but sometimes to other programs as well.
At
We're
what
lucky
age
to have
can they
you
come
here.
in here?
Thank you.
I'm
And
sorry.
it is special to be here. Before we came to Antolini, her mom, Barbara Rankin, was in another school, and it wasn't working. We were told, you can play on the playground, but you have to go inside when the other kids come.
And that was my experience a few years ago before I came here. It still exists. It
Yeah.
seems impossible once you're here because it's
Right.
such a special program, but it still is very much alive and exists.
And Barbara knew the principal, Sue,
I believe it's Sue Hope.
and, yeah. Talking a while ago.
That was a long time ago.
And the principal said, oh, why don't you come to the Antolini school? And it's been a wonderful relationship. Yeah.
Yeah.
Our girls actually did a program. I don't know, I don't remember you, but I remember you doing your music program. They did an egg hunt. We had this, do you
Yes.
remember that?
Yes.
The girls that did the
Yeah.
egg hunt and.
Was that a Girl Scout project?
No, actually, it was with the school, and they were able, like, the school gave kids $100 to do what they wanted.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So they wanted to do something with Oak Hill, and it was right around Easter time. So they did an egg hunt and a craft, and so I came in to help with that. So I got to see your program firsthand, and it was amazing.
That was a great program those girls put together.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
They enjoyed it. They really enjoyed it,
Yeah.
and it was nice to see it.
We're really eager to be reintegrated and start doing a lot more things.
Well, thank you for being with us.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
If you ever have any more questions, we're down the hall.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Emily. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. So the next part of the superintendent's report is the tutoring program for the current school year. As I mentioned several weeks back at a Board of Education meeting, we were looking to implement this tutoring program before school. Because of the pandemic, the last year and a half, there's been learning loss with some of our students. Through our in-house assessments and also through standardized tests, we did identify students who need a little extra as far as helping students moving forward. So we are planning to propose a tutoring program before school at each school, starting in mid-October. It'll be $12,000. That money will not come from the operating budget. It'll come through a grant, a federal grant, and we'll reevaluate this at the end of the year. It's not guaranteed we'll have this program every single year, but it's certainly needed at this time. So I'd like to thank Amanda, Kelly, and Heather, and Barbara for their planning of this very special program. At this time, Amanda, Kelly, and Heather will present on this exciting new tutoring program.
Okay, well, thank you for having us tonight. We're excited to share this new opportunity for our students with you. And so I'm just going to start by giving you some background information. In the spring, we attended a conference through the Center for School Change. And so it was on acceleration, which is a topic and term you hear often these days about how do we keep kids learning through the pandemic. And so acceleration is that concept of keeping learning going and supporting students learning as they go. So tutoring has been identified as one of the most effective ways to keep students moving forward. And so there is a specific structure to this program. It's not considered homework help. It is specified and based on what specific skills students need in order for them to continue moving forward in their learning. So I'm just going to give you a basic idea of the structure and the staffing for it.
Okay, so the students that we're going to select, this will run in grades 1 through 6. We'll identify students through our scientific research-based intervention program, SRBI. So once we fully assess the kids, we can really target the skills that they need to move up. So we're going to be selecting kids from each grade level, but only in groups of maybe 2 to 4. And that's an ideal group size for strategy groups and interventions. So that's why we're keeping those groups nice and small. The program will run 4 days a week from Tuesday to Friday at all of our schools. And it will run for 30 minutes prior to the school day. Part of the research shows that interventions work best when they're incorporated as part of the school day, as opposed to something that a child might leave school and go do, say, at 5 o'clock at night. So that's why this is ideal timing. So we will need a little cooperation from parents. So we'll invite them to please drive their child to school. We'll meet them at the door and start the intervention at that time. And our main focus are on our 2 biggest areas, which are reading and math. And in order to deliver this instruction, we're going to use our paraprofessionals. We have amazing staff in all 3 buildings who support students throughout the school day. And we're going to make sure that they're trained in how to implement these interventions with these small groups of students so that we really get the biggest bang for our buck here. And as parents need additional training, we'll provide that throughout the school year. But like I said, it's going to be tied exactly to what we're doing in the classroom. It will be strategy-based, as Kelly mentioned, and it will really target exactly what students need. Brian mentioned that the cost will be about $12,000 for the year, and that covers additional hours and training that they need. But we have materials, and it really is a great opportunity to provide intervention where students aren't then missing instruction in something else. That's sometimes hard for students. So students who need a lot of intervention, this is the perfect opportunity for them. And as Brian mentioned, with the pandemic, there's definitely more students who need the additional support.
So that's our super quick presentation, but it gives you the basic idea. So, again, it's very similar to the structures we have currently in place. We're just also extending our time to ensure that those who are participating aren't missing any additional learning from the rest of it. So, questions that you might have?
You're pretty confident that you'll be able to get students and parents here early to fill up the amount of space, open space that we have?
I do. I think that our parents are so wonderful. They always work with us together to do whatever is best for their child. So I'm really hopeful that they're going to agree to bring them.
Do you think the, I mean, 4 students per grade level, that's, less than 10% of each grade level. Is that enough of a, scope to capture the need?
Yes. So this is in addition to our already in place SRBI programming or intervention groups that we have. So this actually allows us to capture more of our students than we normally would be able to. So although it does seem like small groups, that's in addition to everyone that we're already servicing throughout the day.
Okay.
And we also have some students who need multiple interventions. So this would allow us to maybe provide one during the school day, but one before school, so they're missing less instruction.
Are these students already spotted? In other words, you know who they're going to be?
We have a pretty good idea of we know who is in our intervention program, who has been identified with SRBI. And then what we'll do is identify the students that we would like in this small group and reach out to parents, but we have not done that yet. Our aim is to start this by mid-October.
What do you expect to accomplish? What are we trying to do? Are we trying to catch students up from last year? Are we trying to improve test scores? What's the end game here, or the reasoning behind this?
So our goal is really to catch students up, right? The goal of intervention is to close that gap between where we want students to be and where they currently are.
Mhm.
That is always the goal. And this really allows for 2 extra hours of instruction per week. And that is the goal, to narrow that gap.
Okay.
Ultimately eliminate it.
Is this also adding homework to the students, or is this just an in-school thing?
Right. It's just instruction.
And it's funded through a federal grant.
That's correct, yeah.
Was that part of ARP or
That's
something?
separate. It's
Separate.
a REAP grant. Yep.
Okay. Great.
So what does the 12,000 cover?
Training and salaries.
What about, do they need books? Or do we already have them?
We have books, but there's some additional materials that this will pay for you.
Okay. And that'll come out of our operating budget?
This money, the 12,000 will come out of everything.
Okay.
Training,
Oh, and the
materials.
books,
Yep.
okay, good. Great. Sounds like a great program.
It is.
And Brian, how long do you think that 12,000 is going to last? I mean, if it starts at October 12th,
That's for the entire year.
it will last through
Yes.
the year?
Yep.
Great.
Is
Thanks.
everything housed here at Antolini? Because if it's 1st through 6th grade, will you be having like one at New Hartford, one at Bakerville, and one here?
Yes, on each building.
I was just checking for busing, getting them back and how to go.
Any other questions from the board?
If there's a need, I'm just thinking forward, looking a little bit, if more of a gap exists with, we have so many students at home now. Is this like a one-time grant, or is there a possibility if we need further funding that we could extend the program?
Yes, there's a possibility we could extend it, yes.
I just think it's that important that
Yeah,
Sure.
it would be great if we could get it every year.
Any further questions? Great, thank you.
Thank you, Amanda,
Thank
Kelly,
you.
Heather. Thank
Thank
you. Nice job. So just to update the board on the opening of school, it's been a very challenging start to the school year. We currently have 11 COVID-19 cases since the beginning of the school year. Extremely disruptive. Once again, the pandemic, very challenging. Since March 2020, it's continued. The reasons why, in working with the Connecticut Department of Public Health and our local area health department, the Farmington Valley Health District, New Hartford has the highest infection rate out of all the towns in the Farmington Valley. In addition, you have a new virulent variant that is attacking children at a higher rate compared to last year. And all of these factors are leading to increased positive cases in our school community. Very disruptive, we understand that, to parents and staff. It's impacts almost all operations, even down to the buses. Just this week, a COVID-19 situation with the bus driver has caused to collapse one bus. And as we know, there's staffing issues. There's a bus shortage in the state of Connecticut. There's a bus shortage in the region. So that does impact as far as our bus runs, which it has as well during the course of this year. So we're working very hard as a school district. Our staff, our administrative team have done a fantastic job trying to limit the amount of days a student is quarantined at home. And it's day and night, it's weekends, and we're trying to do everything we can to limit that disruption.
Brian, you had sent an email out on Friday that talked about the test out of quarantine. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. So we started the year at a student could return after 10 days on day 11. Now, parents could have their children opt out with a negative COVID-19 test, a PCR, that's a rapid or antigen test, not an at-home test. And that's provided to the school. And then students with that, and of course, they're asymptomatic, students can return on day 8. So that reduces the amount of time that students are in quarantine and get them back to in-person as quickly as possible. They can return the negative test on day 8. Yes, yes.
Lost my train of thought, I'm sorry.
Did you say the rapid test was?
Rapid and antigen are the same.
The rapid.
test, yeah.
So initially, we had started off quarantining entire classrooms. And as of late, it looks like your past few emails, it's quarantining specific students. Can you
So,
explain that?
sure, because every positive case is unique. We may, and I mentioned this during the reopening committee meetings and during the Board of Education meeting. We may still have to quarantine a class. You could have more than one staff member in the class who test positive. You could have several students in the class who test positive. So that just increases the amount of students and staff who need to be quarantined.
Have we changed anything that we're doing inside the schools from the start of the year till now? I mean, I think it's safe to say we got off on a little rougher start than we were anticipating. Are we doing things to change it up so we're not?
Sure. So our cohorting is very similar to last year, very similar, with the exception the lunchroom and the recess outside. Recess, it's about mitigating risk. And we understand that outside, through all the data, it's a lot less of a risk as far as inside the building. So in saying that, since the beginning of the year, we're tightening up our cohorts. So they stay together at the beginning of the year, except for lunch and recess. now within the school, we are mirroring the seating charts, whether it be in a special, into the classroom, and trying to mirror in the lunchroom as far as try to keep the kids as close as possible together to limit the amount of kids who need to be on quarantine.
Anything with buses? Are we doing anything
So we're-
different there?
No, so we're following the same strategy as last year as far as seating charts on the bus. So it's impossible to cohort kids on a bus because you have kids from all different grade levels on there. So we're following that same procedure on the buses last year.
Can you elaborate on how you determine, or I don't want to know if that's the way to put it, but what directs you to a classroom to do testing or something? If someone is sick or if someone shows symptoms, or how are you picking your testing, in other words?
As far as the testing of students in a classroom,
Right.
yeah. So if a student tests positive, right, they need to provide a negative test to return back to school. If we have, what's that?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but they test positive from when or from where?
It all varies, and sometimes
They
it's
do it on their own.
impossible. We work in conjunction with the Farmington Health District, and it's impossible to understand where the origins of the actual positive case is. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't know.
I think your question, Tony, and the school isn't requiring, the school isn't testing.
Oh,
They're testing on their own.
Yes.
Oh, they're doing a test.
Yeah, the school's not testing them, but they still need to be tested though, right, to come back.
Right, once they test positive.
Yeah,
Right,
negative,
right.
yes.
I think what Tony was clarifying is that we're not selecting students to test.
Right, that's correct.
But you'll.
No, yeah, thank you.
So going back to Tim's question, because I don't know if I understood the answer or I heard the answer. When this started, right, we have 11 cases. When the first cases were coming up, Brian, we were quarantining full classrooms. Are we no longer quarantining full classrooms?
We are trying not, to, but it still may be the case that we may need to quarantine an entire classroom.
That's understood. Yeah, I mean, if you lose both faculty members in a classroom, right, we don't have anybody to teach a student. But so we are now not going to, if one in particular student in the classroom tests positive, we're not quarantining the full class.
That's correct. It all depends on, like it was at the beginning of the year, like you said, the 2 staff members, if there's additional members, the classroom students that test positive, then we have to quarantine the class.
And how are you managing, I should ask, how are you managing classrooms that have partial home, partial in class?
So that's quite challenging. I know we touched upon that before school started. So the plan is, if we have an entire class that's quarantined, then the teacher, provided the teacher is not symptomatic, will teach that entire class synchronously, live, if that's the whole class. As Tim, you're alluding to, we've had times, and this is very difficult. When you have half the class, right, is quarantined, the other half is not, half the class comes into school, half the class is home. Those students who are home are learning asynchronously, not live, through Google Classroom and completing assignments, and that teacher will check in, not live, but will check in with their work, and of course, if there's any questions, the teacher can reach out to the parents. And that's a big change from last year.
But there is no one-on-one interaction with a para or a teacher when they're doing so, correct?
For those
Yeah.
kids.
Did we plan for this?
Yes.
We did,
We spoke about this.
sure.
So
I think
some of
the only change was the quarantine time period, right?
So some of those students are home in a classroom, and they're doing Google Classroom, then they have to wait until that teacher checks in to see if they have questions. They can't get an answer right away.
No, because the teacher's working with the kids during the course of the whole day, live. And by the way, this situation is for most districts are doing this. It's exactly what I'm explaining as part of that. I understand it's very painful, very disruptive. Most districts are following this plan. Definitely Region 7. the elementary school.
I just have one question. So if a whole class is quarantined, and I can use this last example for us, my son's whole class was quarantined. If we follow the new guidelines for the 7 days, if he tests negative, can he then come into school if the teacher's teaching in the school, or does, because the whole class is out, he needs to remain out until that class goes back together? Because then she would be now teaching online and in person.
Are you referring to a student who was not tested positive?
Yes, so you had stated that if there's a test out option, if you're after 7 days, your child tests negative, they can come back into school. Is that only if their class is not in full quarantine?
No, they can still come in.
Okay, so then the teacher is now teaching live, online, and in class.
No, that's not happening. The
Okay.
teacher will teach live with those kids in their classroom. The rest of the students in that classroom.
Yeah.
That at home, they're working asynchronously in the Google Classroom and the teacher checking.
Okay, I'm just, so my son's class was quarantined just recently. They got to go back today. He tested negative right away when, within that time period. Now moving forward with the new rule, he would have to stay quarantined for that whole time period with his class because the whole class was quarantined, correct? I could not have sent him in, correct? Okay, I just was making sure that so that rule only applies if that classroom is not completely quarantined and it's just a select few from there. And once those kids are tested negative, then they may go back in and join, correct? I have that correct? Okay.
And it's 8 days.
But then,
Eight, sorry.
But if you have the whole classroom, right? We can go out in so many different scenarios. If you have the whole classroom, right? You're quarantined, right?
Yeah.
And they all test out, they can come back, with the negative test, asymptomatic, come back day 8, right?
Okay, but then is that teacher now teaching live and in person like last
The
year?
teacher will never be teaching live, right, and asynchronous.
Okay, so maybe I'm not getting this then.
So I think what you're getting at is if the whole classroom is quarantining, right? The whole classroom's got to quarantine for at least 7 days. On the 8th day, assuming that most of them test negative, they all go back into the classroom with the teacher. Okay.
Most of them kids, yes.
And there may be-
Every kid's not gonna test out.
Correct. There may
Correct.
be a couple of kids that either choose not to test out or are still testing positive. They will still be home learning asynchronously.
And then those children who choose not to test out or don't, they remove to, independent work with the teacher check-in. Okay.
Correct.
I would just clear. 'Cause
I think
was-
what you're getting at is there, and I might be wrong, but is there ever a time where there are students in a classroom with no teacher in the classroom? Is that what you're asking?
No,
Okay.
I just I was in the unique situation where one kid was quarantined for the full, 14 days and one child was not, but there was a handful that was missing. And in the middle of it, you got the change update. So I was just curious, how would that then look for the teacher if they're not? I was just looking for clarification on how that looks, but I got it.
Well, I guess the question is, when does that flip happen? If the whole class is on distance learning and 2 of them decide to test and come back, does that mean the teacher's back in the classroom and everybody else, the other 17 students are?
I would assume that most parents would test their child out of quarantine after the 7-day period, but
Maybe.
yeah,
Right.
there's a chance you might not.
Right.
Yeah. So there is a chance that there could be a teacher in a classroom with 2 students live.
If I could always give you any reason why this town is so riddled with COVID? Do they have any idea what's going on?
And I mentioned, it's infection rate, right now, the last 2 weeks, in Farmington Valley, 10 counts. Sometimes it comes from social gatherings outside of our school.
Is there more unvaccinated people in town? They're spreading it?
The vaccination rates for New Hartford are on the lower end. Percentage of vaccine eligible people in Farmington Valley, yes.
Thanks.
Any further questions?
Well, I'm just curious, I mean, how do we stop it? Do you have, I mean, is there any talk of testing before the students come into class, or, and how sick are any of them? Do you, any idea? I mean,
Continue to educate, right? Parents, every communication home, right? If your child, you ask, how do you prevent this, right? If your child is feeling ill or sick, keep them home. What you're getting sometimes is that some parents say, oh, it's an allergy. And that in turn is not an allergy, it's COVID-19. So I think that's a big piece as far as if your child's sick, just keep them home. I think it's a very good intervention. Tony, you asked about how do you prevent this moving forward? So this data point has moved all over the place as far as eligible students between 5 and age 11 being able to be vaccinated. So initially, the federal government said, well, that's going to be in the winter. Then they said December. Then today, someone said by Halloween, we started to get that first shot. So who knows when that's going to be, but you're asking how we're going to get out of this eventually. Those are several factors.
how severe are symptoms of any of the students? Are they, have you heard, or do you?
So the very positive piece of this, even though it's afflicting younger children at a higher rate than previous variants, children are not getting as sick as older. So that's a positive. And of course, that's not absolute, that's most of the data. So that's a very positive piece, that children are not getting extremely sick, being in hospital.
Do you see any further changes on the forefront, Brian? Are we going to have to do anything different? Are we considering remote learning, distance learning full-time, anything along those lines?
So great question. So we know that in-person learning is the best form of learning. It's the best learning model. We are doing everything we can to keep the kids in our schools. Keep them safe. So we're going to do everything we can to keep these lights on, keep these doors open. Last year, we were out for 2.5 weeks. A lot less than most districts. It was because of a staffing issue. Now most of our staff are vaccinated. So that was a very key component last year. So that obviously that area has improved this year. But once again, we're going to do everything we can to continue to change, we continue to modify, we continue to look at our strategies and try to change and try to ensure to limit the risk.
Any further questions?
That's what I was gonna ask, like, do you expect to change, the lunch procedure, just kind of go on how things are going in that particular school at that given moment?
We looked at that, I discussed that. So, we have kids now are 3 feet apart in the classroom. So if they were eating in the lunchroom at this time at 3 feet, they would have less space at the lunchroom. Right? We space kids out in the lunchroom.
Okay.
Now, yes, we could go back to 6 feet, right, and change that, but we're trying to keep that environment for kids eating lunch in there in the lunchroom. But to answer your question, if we do have to change, we do.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you. All right, we will move on to public comment. Is there anybody that would like to speak tonight? Whoever wants to go first.
Do you mind if I remove my mask so I can microphone?
If you could keep it up, I appreciate it.
Is this still on? Can you guys hear me?
Turn it up there. Tap on? Okay, thank you.
Hi, Rebecca Welsh, Millette Lane, New Hartford. The only reason that my husband and I stayed is because there's things that I have to say tonight. I can't believe how you spoke to the crowd, Tim. I mean, I honestly thought that I knew you better than that. I've never have seen.
Rebecca, I don't want to get into this.
Okay, but
tonight.
I'm just, it's public
The
comment.
rules are the rules.
Okay.
There's signs on the door. You had to trip over the masks to come in. The
Mhm.
agenda says masks. I don't want to be the mask Gestapo, but
So is this
as
how
a public
the staff
official,
in
I
our
have to do
schools
it.
are talking to our kids?
Huh?
Is this how the staff in our schools are talking to our kids? Because if you can talk to a
No,
grown
because
adult
the
like this.
kids come to school with a mask on.
Okay, but if they are falling down or whatever, is it a constant, Jimmy, get your mask up or get to the
I don't know
principal's
that.
office?
And
Well, you're right, you
I'm sorry, this is
don't.
public comment, right? This isn't a discussion.
You're not
Right.
even supposed to be speaking back to me anyway. Isn't
Well,
that a
so
rule?
if that's the case, then may I ask you to please read the rules of what we're supposed to do before and during public comment? Because I feel like it's now changing. What are the rules?
I don't want to get into the mask debate.
Okay, so I'll drop the mask. I'm concerned. I made that clear.
Thank you.
There was a bus incident yesterday. I do want to say, Brian, that you handled that amazing. John and I were very, very impressed with the whole thing. For those of you that don't know, there was a bus incident that there was a sub driver. Brian got very involved with it, handled it, made sure that everything was okay. So it was, all the kids were safe. It was brought to my attention though after the fact that I guess there's a radio issue. Some people were saying, I guess, out, by West Hill and things like that, the radios aren't working, or I don't know how the whole thing works, but there's not enough service out there for the radios to work. That driver did mention something about the radio. I didn't believe him because he just seemed very flustered, but he may have been correct in that there wasn't service. So I don't know if our system needs to be updated or something, because yes, in that situation, I think that the driver was just lost, and because of his age, maybe he didn't know where he was. But I'm just thinking, if a bus were to get into an accident or something like that and they're out of radio service range, that could lead to a very serious problem. So I don't know if there's something in the budget for that, but that was the main reason that I wanted to come up and talk. So, thank you.
Everybody. Heather Riera. I'm not here to berate anybody. I appreciate everything that's been done so far. I believe everybody's doing their very best, but I also believe that when we know better, we can do better. I'm a mom of an 8-year-old here, but I'm also a kindergarten teacher in another district. My district does not have this problem, and I think it comes from our clear communication. Our district, in my district, has this right on our website. It's a decision tree that tells exactly what happens if you're vaccinated, not vaccinated, how many days, tested, not tested, the whole 9 yards. Parents can easily go to the website and know exactly what the decisions are. My daughter was quarantined on the second week of school, and when she found out, she was mortified. An 8-year-old shouldn't be depressed from the decisions of a school. And so I feel like I'm really happy actually to hear that there are other things happening in the school as far as seating and making sure that cohorts are not being mixed in with each other. That made me feel so much better, so thank you for that. We are not quarantining a whole class in my district either, so hearing that that's something that we're moving towards is also great. I don't care as a parent. As parents, we always go through stuff. We're always going to have those troubling times, but it's our kids that really are suffering. And I don't feel like they're getting a quality education if they're home for 10 days. God knows how many times a year that'll happen. In our district, when a student is home, we are required to meet with them 2 times a day virtually. Too many lessons to check in so that when they do have a question, it can be answered within that day, not 2 days later or in an email. I'm happy to see that there's some changes going on, but I feel like if we look at other districts and see what they're doing, I'm hoping that maybe we can get some answers too. Thank you.
Heather, what's your address for the record?
Oh, sorry. 16 Greenwoods Road.
Greenwoods?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Kristen Kasiba, 40 Windsor Lane. I read the handbook, and on page 27 it discussed school ceremonies and observances. The school district recognizes the value of certain ceremonies and observances in promoting patriotism and good citizenship among students. However, this weekend, I asked my children if they discussed 9/11 or heard of Patriot Day and National Day of Service and Remembrance while in school this week. And they looked at me with a blank stare and said no. If there is any day that promotes patriotism and good citizenship, 9/11 would embody this. I am disappointed in the fact that 9/11 wasn't brought up as a topic of discussion in our school's curriculum. Only speaking for the younger elementary, I don't know what they do in Anthony, but it is a part of our history, yet it isn't discussed. I could understand that there was a lot of fear, uncertainty, and emotions that day with extremely gruesome details. However, that day also brought a lot of love, respect, not only for each other, but for our country, and most of all, the unity with one another. My father was there that day walking into the towers as they were hit and still suffers from 9/11 illnesses. I feel that it is a disservice to the many men, women, law enforcement, firefighters, EMT, service members who lost their lives that day, and especially to the members of the families that they left behind. If anything, you could use this experience as a platform to teach our children about respecting one another, having empathy towards each other, and respecting our country and our freedoms. And then I also just want to touch upon the quarantine. I know that you had mentioned, how do we stop this? Unfortunately, there's no way. It's a virus, it's always going to happen and mutate. However, I know that other school districts are, if a student is positive in the classroom, they're kind of quarantining that just said group next to them. Currently, right now, I read the reopening letter and the handbook, and there's no set guidelines and scenarios around quarantine. So if there's something that's going to come out, I think it would be great to send it to the parents or have it on the website. Many students and classes have already quarantined this year, and there is a growing number of concern for families and protocols. Not that you know this, no one's here, really only a couple parents, but I know that they voice it a lot on Facebook. I've heard that if a student gets COVID outside of school, they are not eligible for online learning and will receive work from their teachers. However, if the student has quarantined due to a positive case in the school, they're eligible for distant learning. I think that's only if the class is quarantining. How are the school days being counted? Are they going to be unexcused absences? And then if it happens multiple times a year, does the student become truant? Do you know that the social, emotional, and educational toll this will have on our children? Especially that they will receive distance learning if they get COVID in school, but not if they contract it out of school. My child is already a year and a half behind. My children cannot afford to be out of school for even 10 days due to being quarantined. And in that time, not being able to receive a proper education is unacceptable. Are we allowing for a test out option, which you stated that we were? Why are we encouraging healthy children to remain home to quarantine if they test negative? You mentioned that you're not selecting kids to test, but signaling out those students in a way that you are signaling them out. Why are we allowing vaccinated staff to not quarantine, knowing that you could still transmit the virus fully vaccinated? The school district's goals, as stated in the handbook, is to create and sustain an educational community responsive to the intellectual, social, and emotional needs of children. So please explain where we go from here to fulfill this goal. And I think that was all of my notes. But thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Anybody else? Okay. We will move on to the consent agenda.
We pull the minutes.
What ones would you like to pull?
Oh, there's more than one. Just the one from August 17th.
Sure. Go ahead.
My name is just spelled incorrectly on page 1 and page 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. twice on page 1 and twice on page 4. That was it.
I've got a couple more, Laura, if you're,
Yeah, I've got some, but is that for the 17th or the 14th?
the 17th. This is the
Okay.
minutes from the 17th we pulled. You got that one, Laura? All right. Page 2, under public comment, you have David Bean. It's Damon, Damon, Bean.
Damon?
Damon, yep. On the second one, William Marcano. It's Arrowhead Drive. On page 3, you have Ms. Zucker. Her name is Anissa, Anissa. And then Christopher Gagne, Gagne, I believe is how it's spelled. Any other corrections from the 17th? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the revised minutes from the 17th?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Mary seconds. All those in favor? It's unanimous. We good with the 24th?
I have changes on page 2.
On the 24th?
Yes, on the
Okay.
24th. Third paragraph down, it states Tim Buzzy instead of Tom Buzzy.
Thank you.
And fourth paragraph down, it says marks instead of masks. Okay.
Good?
Yeah.
Anybody else? Is there a motion to approve the revised minutes from August 24th?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mary seconds. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Actually, if you could, Laura, if you could revise August 17th, I should have abstained from that motion to approve those minutes.
Which motion?
On the motion to approve the minutes from the
Oh,
17th. You could abstain me from that, I'm sorry. And Brian, do you have an update on personnel you want to share?
I do, thank you, Ted. So Maggie Daigle, congratulations, she has 2 additions to the family. So she is requesting an extended maternity leave for the entire current school year. Congratulations to Megan and her family, but I'm asking the board, recommending the board approve this. Extended maternity leave for the entire year, and Megan's scheduled to return next week.
Any questions from the board on that?
Did she have a baby yet? Sure.
Yeah.
Nice. Thank you. I make a motion that we approve Megan Daigle's request for taking the rest of the year off
On maternity leave?
on maternity leave. Play with baby.
I'll second.
Mary seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That's unanimous.
And the final piece of the personnel report is the heavy heart that we informed the board that Laura Fritsch is resigning her post after tonight. Laura, thank you for everything. Thank you for your contributions to the Hartford Public Schools. And, we will miss you. I'll post that position tomorrow. And Penny will be working with Penny has experience doing this.
Old reliable. Thank you,
Make sure
Laura.
you get your spelling right, Penny.
Don't worry.
Thank you, Laura. We
Thanks,
appreciate what
Laura.
you've done
Bye,
for
you
us.
guys.
Thank you, Lauren.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
There's second. Tony, any discussion on the consent agenda?
Do we need to discuss Mrs. Savage?
Okay.
Just for information.
Okay.
Okay, no further discussion. All those in favor? Aye. That's unanimous. Okay, if there's nothing else, is there a motion to adjourn at 8:02?
Sure, let's adjourn.
Penny's got it. Carl seconds.
I'll second.
All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you.
Was.